All right, so one of my most popular videos is talking about what you need to know before you get into welding. And so I kind of wanted to go off of that video specifically because in there I'm talking about having a direction, knowing where you're going to go with things, going to know where you want to take your career, or specifically where you want to take your welding. So I figured today I would talk about 20 industries specifically that you could get into if you've just learned welding or you haven't gotten into it yet but you want to learn welding. I still really think it's a great idea. Have an idea of which avenue you want to go down, because everything is so diverse. There's so much niche little things that you need to learn, you need to pick up on, you need to go above and beyond just learning how to weld. Because really at the end of the day, welding is just gluing pieces of metal together. You can do it really pretty, you can do it really sloppy, you can do it strong, you can do it clean, you can do it weak, you can do it ugly. I mean, there's 1,000 different ways for the weld to turn out, and that is very important. But beyond that, there's so many more skills that come along with where specifically you want to go. And where you want to go is going to dictate which process you're probably going to favor more over others. I really implore everyone to learn all processes. TIG, stick, MIG will get you most of all of it. It will cover you. I don't think you need to learn underwater welding. That's very specific. That is one of the industries, but I can't really remember the 20 off the top of my head, so I typed it up, printed it out. So you're gonna have to bear with me. I got me a cheat sheet here. I'm gonna just read off to you guys, but these are 20 industries that require welding, and it's good to kind of pick or decide where you want to go and start looking at everything that's involved with that trade, so you will stand out above other people that are just getting out of welding school. You got to think all your classmates, if you're in a welding school, or if you're thinking of going to a welding school, or you just want to know how to weld, you're learning how to weld, you're about to break out on your own, you got to realize there is a lot of competition out there. There's so many schools now that push a lot of welders out really quickly now, way faster than it used to. I know that everyone's talking about, oh, there's going to be shortage of welders in the industry, and I just don't see it, honestly, with the up and coming weld schools now that have really taken off here, got really kind of famous. I feel like within the last 6-7 years, they've really ramped up, and every 16 to 20 weeks, you got batches of anywhere from 15 to 20 kids per school rolling out. They just learned welding. They just learned welding. Now, not all those are certified. Not all of them did great or just couldn't really pick it up, but that did. I mean, there's a lot more competition than it used to be, where it used to be a lot more painstaking, I guess you'd say, to break out as a welder. So without further ado, I'm going to rip through these real quick as fast as I can. First one, obviously, is construction. That's for building structures, bridges, high-rise buildings. 2 is automotive industry, in manufacturing, repairing vehicles, cars, motorcycles, trucks, the such. Shipbuilding, marine industry, that's a really big one on the coasts, for construction, repairing ships, boats, and other marine vessels. And that can be, just little boat places. That doesn't even have to be on the coast. It can be anywhere, honestly. Boat shop that makes like aluminum boats and stuff like that. Aerospace industry, thinking SpaceX, and production maintenance of aircraft and spacecraft. The oil and gas industry for pipeline fabrication and maintenance, well as construction of oil rigs. Railroad industry, railroad's still pretty big. Building and maintaining railway equipment and infrastructure. You got manufacturing industry in the production of machinery, equipment, and consumer goods. That's kind of more like kind of production welding. I'd say a lot of MIG. Art and sculpting, that's very niche. That's really cut and dry, but I mean, you could actually make a pretty good killing for yourself on social media and stuff like that if you're recording as you're making the art and stuff. I've always found that really cool. I love metal art, welding art. I just don't have the mind for it, but it's always really beautiful seeing some of the things that people are able to make. So art and sculpture. Pipe fitting and plumbing, that's for joining and repairing pipes, obviously in industrial, commercial, and residential settings. I would veer away from residential. There's just not a whole lot of money in it. Seems to be a lot more competition, and the clientele is really tough to work with, honestly, in residential. Very high standards, very hard to get paid or get paid properly, because the trade is pretty expensive. The skill set is expensive for you to charge out, and most residential people can't really afford it unless you get into high-end luxury homes and stuff like that. So the metal fabrication shops, that's obvious. It's just a custom metal work for a variety of applications. I mean, there's like 3 or 4 of them in my area, just custom fab shops. I operate one myself. Structural steel industry, fabricating and erecting steel frames for building structures. I'd say that's more like iron workers. They do a lot of iron erection. Probably not the best use of that word, but mining industry, repairing, maintenance, mining equipment and infrastructure, military and defense, tons of money in that. Very difficult to get into. Most of the time you have ex-military personnel that were involved with working with contractors. They get out as civilians and they turn around and they contract back into. So it's, I'd say that one's pretty tough, but very lucrative. Just manufacturing, repairing military equipment and vehicles and such. Power generating industry, building and maintaining structures and power plants, nuclear, hydroelectric, and wind power. You got underwater welding, like I talked about earlier, for repairs and construction underwater. You got offshore oil rigs, ship hulls, underwater pipelines, that such. Agricultural industry, that one too. Repairing and fabricating agricultural machinery and equipment, track hose, just any kind of piece of equipment. That's what I did when I first got out as Welderbeast. I first busted out that business. I did a lot of repair on farm equipment. It seems like junk metal, but if you know how to weld, it didn't have to be pretty, but it didn't need to be efficient and needed to be strong. So that was knowing the industry. I knew how to make a weld that was strong, would not crack out. I knew how kind of the metallurgy of what I was doing, is understanding what I was doing to the metal as I was welding on it. And I guess it's not really good for business because I never did get called back to ever repair those. They're still holding to this day as far as I know. Motorsports and racing, of course, that's always a fun one. You got custom vehicle fabrication, build and modifying custom vehicles and motorcycles, things that people just come up with ideas like, hey, why don't you build this? Heavy equipment repair, and that kind of goes along more like what I was talking about before. It was farm equipment, but also I guess track hose aren't really farm equipment, but it was a company they used for ripping up tree stumps and stuff like that. So that kind of two and the same, I guess, just depends on which one you're looking at. Heavy equipment, you have heavy equipment in agricultural industry. And then robotics and automation, fabricating parts and structures for robotic systems, automated machinery. So even if they're making robots and such that can do things for us, do our jobs, they still need us to be able to even repair them. So it's still there. But that's just the 20 off the top things I could think of for you to know about kind of which avenue start going down, because you need to know some, as you can kind of imagine, are very high level skill, such as underwater welding. That's very specific. There's 2 or 3 of them. Arts, then you got the custom vehicle, and then even working on vehicles and motorcycle stuff like that. That I feel has a little bit more of an artistic touch. Like you need to be kind of more in tune with your creative side when you're going there. If you're like me, I'm very just straightforward. It's this, and this. And I like processes and procedures. So manufacturing and fabrication always made sense to me, just because with the engineering involved and stuff like that, I could get in tune with that more than my creative side. Then you have structural stuff, marine stuff. A couple of them, they're more very specific on it. Maybe doesn't even matter what the weld looks like, but it does matter with the integrity of the weld. Granted, most of the time you'll have a good integrity weld that does look good. I mean, you can have ugly welds. I mean, hell, you should look at some of the welds on the very old pipelines 30, 40 years ago. I mean, they're just hogged on there, just like, oh God. But they held all this time. So you can go on all sides of it. Obviously, you want a strong weld, but sometimes pretty doesn't matter. Sometimes pretty is everything, and it doesn't have to be strong, like art and stuff like that. So I feel like you're kind of getting an idea, and I'm going on and on now. But without even knowing specifically what you want to do, you can't have a general idea in which way you want to lean. More creative, more strong. Do you need speed? Do you need efficiency? Do you need to have a better mind for design? Kind of with the engineering type stuff. If you're venturing a little bit out into something that will need structural integrity, like you're building structural catwalks, stairs, things like that, and you're not obviously even working for a company with an engineer, or you're starting your own company, you don't have an engineer, you need to kind of understand those lever points and stress points and thicknesses of material. There's all sorts of things. So that, I feel like, is a really good kind of kickoff to the continuation on what I was talking about with before you even get into welding. Have a good idea with where you're headed first and what you want to do, and does it line up with what you're naturally good and gifted at doing. And then from there, I think the rest is easy. So anyways, until next time, I'm going to jump off here, but I hope you have a great day.